If you're passionate about the Kawasaki H2 like we are, you found the right video. Look at this 1973 two-stroke and oh, a modern one, supercharged 2016, and we're not done yet, guys. How about a drag bike like you've never seen before? Stay with us. This video is gonna be H2 awesome. Hello once again, Cycle Drag Universe, motorcycle fanatics. You know we are on the quest to bring you the absolute baddest, most impressive motorcycles we can find. We've logged some miles lately. You know that if you've been following me. And let's show you how we got here. I wanted to share this heavenly view from my early morning flight from Pittsburgh. The always beautiful Chicago O'Hare Airport. We got a lot to do. We got a lot of motorcycle drag racing to talk about. Let's get on our way. And truck shopping. F-150 Platinum. So we meet again. Yes, if you follow this channel, this is the same exact truck I looked at 4 months ago, back in October, on the way to Martin, Michigan for a drag race. Fell in love with this truck, but I felt they were high on price, and the salesman flat out told me, we will never come down any lower. Well, I kept an eye on it, and it's still there. Well, we did it. We pulled the trigger on this Ford F-150 Platinum. Came back. Price was reduced $7,000. Sometimes it's worth the wait. Let that be a lesson. I love it. Awesome truck, man. Platinum package. It's in great shape.
In 14 miles, keep right onto I-90.
All right, you're taking a look at beautiful downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Well, we're passing through Cleveland, and we promised my good friend Smokin' Joe Molyneux that the next time we're in the area, we're stopping to see him. Why do they call him Smokin' Joe? Because he's got some unbelievable two strokes, an H2 750 drag bike, an H2 750 street bike, and oh yeah, a modern H2. Let's go. You're gonna love this. And if you're a Cleveland Indians fan, shout out. The stadium affectionately known as the Jake. Joe's a little bit of ways from the city. It's beautiful back here, very wooded. I can't wait to see these two strokes. Oh, this was well worth the drive. Welcome to Leroy, Painesville, Ohio, Cycle Drag Universe. That is my good friend, Smokin' Joe Molyneux, and this garage is smoking. We got so much to show you, so much to talk about, interesting questions to be answered, a one-of-a-kind drag bike to see. Joe, thank you so much for having us. Nice shirt, by the way.
Hey,
man.
Sunday. You got to have your Sunday best on, right?
You dressed up for the occasion. That is awesome. First thing I got to ask you is, how did you become a two-stroke guy? You're a young guy. You're what, 40, in your early 40s?
43.
Young guy. You're about in my age group. You're a two-stroke guy. Tell me about it.
It's a family thing, man. I grew up around these bikes. My dad had probably a couple of every one of the Kawasaki triples that was made, and the purple bike there behind you, he drag raced that in the probably late 70s, early 80s, and I just remember as a kid going out to the local track and watching it, and that sound got in my blood, man. As funny as it sounds, the sound really draws me to them, and they're neat bikes, just in the sense that they're so simple. You don't have all the extra spinning stuff that you don't really need, you know?
Angry bees in a can. Once you hear them and you fall in love with them, you're cursed forever. If you're watching this video, you probably know what I mean. And once you smell them, the nasal satisfaction of a two-stroke is off the charts. Let's check out these H2s side by side. Well, let's get right to work, Cycle Drag Universe. You may have seen this bike on Cycle Drag YouTube before. This is Smokin' Joe's signature 1973 Kawasaki H2 750. Behind it is the 2016. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. That's a story in and of itself. In fact, we have a little bit of a debate. I have a question to ask you. Did Kawasaki miss the mark with that bike? We'll talk about that later on. But first, let's get a tour of this amazing machine. Joe, you got to come in here and tell me about it. Give me a tour. This bike has really become drag strip famous, hasn't it?
It's definitely made a lot of passes down the drag strip. I know myself, I probably made at least 1,000 passes on this bike. My dad probably made it at least that many, and my brother rode it for a period of time as well.
Well, it's far from stock, so tell me about some of the resto rod, hot rod upgrades that we have on here.
Actually, this bike is really close to stock. The motor's very lightly ported. You could easily ride this bike on the street. It's very well behaved. It's got 34 millimeter round slide Mikunis.
Not stock, right?
They're not stock, no. I think they came stock with 32s.
I can tell you've been drag racing a little bit too long, because compared to the stock ones I see at Mecum, this thing's a hot rod. Look, I see these heads that you told me about that really increase performance. We talked about those before, right?
Yeah.
And a little surprising, my question is, you guys have come up with a head that works a lot better and is a lot more efficient. Why didn't Kawasaki think of this in 1972?
Well, at the end of the day, the fuels that they were using back in the day were entirely different as well. So if you were to take a stock H2 combustion chamber design for street use and put today's pump gas in it, you'd probably have a lot of detonation issues. And just like anything else, you know, the technology gets evolved, you know, over time. So.
And let's back up for a second, Smoking Joe. If somebody's wondering, what are we talking about? Of course, a stock head here in this triple, this 3-cylinder motorcycle would take up this entire surface area right here. You see the new billet heads that these gentlemen have gone to are rounded off. Explain the concept there and why it's an improvement.
The round part's not necessarily an improvement. It just makes it easier to machine because those came out of a piece of bar stock. So it's easy to chuck in a lathe. It's easy to handle when you're machining the combustion chambers. So it was more or less just an ease of making it. One thing that's pretty critical with these, though, they're pretty thick where they bolt in between the cylinders, and the stock heads, especially if you start machining them to getting the combustion chambers where you want, they get fragile and they'll break. But there's even more to it than that. When you torque the heads down, if you're not real careful how you torque them, you can pull the cylinders out around too. So these heads do a couple things. They have a superior combustion chamber design, and they're also very rigid. So when I torque the bolts down, it's a really nice surface to torque against, and it keeps the cylinders nice and round.
It's certainly a big advantage, guys. And Smokin' Joe has an S2 350 over here. I'll show you the heads on an S2 350, and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. This is what the motor looked like stock from Kawasaki. By the way, we love S2 350s. Our dad has one. That was his first ever motorcycle that will be joining the Super Eliminator fray very, very soon. Joe, please continue your tour and tell us what else we have here, because I love it. I know that this is not the tire that Kawasaki gave you from the factory.
No, that's a 5.5 Mickey Thompson. My dad, way back in the day, had the ring laced up to a stock hub. So it has drum brakes on it still. It's very heavy. That rear wheel is extremely heavy with those big stainless spokes. But back in the day, you know, we weren't so concerned with weight as we are today when we're trying to get into the 8s, you know. And this bike on a really good day, it'll run 10 O's. You know, if it gets a little cool out, it'll dip into the 990s. In comparison to the drag bikes. I mean, you know, it's got the factory front wheel and the steel fender. I mean, all that stuff's incredibly heavy.
Absolutely loving this tour, Smokin' Joe, and we are just getting started. If you ever had a two-stroke, let us know down below. If you have any questions for Smokin' Joe, chime in as well. We've got a one-off drag bike behind you. We're going to get a tour of that in a second. But first, I want to talk a little bit about this modern H2 versus the old school H2. On the way over here, I was watching the Jay Leno video that's very popular on YouTube. He has both. He has a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke. For those of you that don't know about the 4-stroke H2, came out in 2015, 300 horsepower, supercharged leader bike from Kawasaki, fastest production motorcycle out there, much like the 72 H2 750 was. But here's something you and I were talking about before that's interesting. If you asked me in 2014 when this bike was announced, the H2, how many would we see at the drag strip? I'd say, man, by the time we get to 2017, there's going to be 30, 40, maybe 50 of these bikes out there for the people that can afford them. They're pricey, but we know drag racers have money. What we now can say more than 5 years later, we haven't seen many at the drag strip.
No, there's not.
I've seen a few. There was a gentleman, Richard Gadsden was on one. That's a video you can see on Cycle Drag YouTube that has over 1 million views. Guy named Big Ron out in California was winning some races. I saw it. Oh, looks like the Busa out first, slight wheelie, but listen to that H2 make power. He is gone. Kawasaki H2 by a mile. Tombo loves it.
What can I say? I raised that for it. I raised that one.
Tombo, did that H2 just beat the Busa?
Yeah, I raised that for it. That's how the Tombo stable there. Yeah, H2 all day, every day.
As I saw a gentleman in Ohio that has a couple of them. Brock's Performance had a couple of them, but not many. For a motorcycle that's so fast, why are we not seeing it at the drag strip?
I think it's mostly the price point. I mean, it's a very expensive bike. I think people are kind of falling back on the old H2s. Kawasaki really hasn't announced how many years they're going to continue to manufacture this bike. So I think people are kind of grabbing on to thinking that it's going to be worth even more as time goes on. So I don't know, that's my guess. Again, it's an expensive bike, and to take one and immediately take it to the drag strip, that's a pretty big step. So I don't know. I would say probably price is the biggest thing.
Price point, and I liken it to what Harley just did with the live wires. For me to editorialize a little bit here, hopefully I'm wrong. I like the concept of the live wire. I think where Harley missed the mark is the motorcycle is too expensive. They want to get the new generation involved. They want the Gen Zers. They want the people that like electric technology. But $30,000 for a motorcycle, I think, is probably too much for most people. Apparently it wasn't too much for you. Well, but you said that even made you sweat a little bit.
I've always bought stuff that's way out of my affordability range, but I got my ZX12 that I bought over there. That was a very expensive bike when I bought it, and I had just bought my first house making $12 an hour, and I bought that bike too. So, it's I've always lived the American lifestyle and buy now, pay later. So.
All right, so here they are side by side. Let me know in the comments, which one do you like better? The 73 H2, the 2016 H2. I love them both, but we are talking a little bit about how Kawasaki may have missed the mark a little bit with the supercharged bike compared to this one. Talking again about some of the history. I love the history of this motorcycle. Now, I wasn't around in 72, so I can't tell you for sure, but from what I understand, 750s were all the rage, okay? The Honda CB was out. All the major manufacturers, almost all of them, had 750s. Kawasaki one-upped everybody with the 72 H2. In fact, their slogan was, "We just pulled a fast one on the competition," because absolutely nothing could compete with this. And the allure, the mystique of the... Uh-oh, there it is.
It says it all right there.
And read that for us. Kawasaki 750.
World's quickest bike by far.
World's quickest bike by far. So my question is, obviously, Kawasaki tried to recreate this with the supercharged hyperbike, but 5+ years later, it doesn't seem like we got there. One difference that I would point out is, I think the two-stroke following that we can tell by this page. We post Super Eliminator two-stroke drag bike videos, and they go nuts all over the world. I'm a two-stroke guy. I love the smell. I love the noise. I don't know if that cult-like following is going to be there for fans of supercharged bikes. I love the supercharger as a drag racer. We see him on Top Fuel motorcycles. We see him on the NHRA, Top Fuel dragsters, funny cars. But I just don't know if it's going to be comparable, the modern H2 versus the H2 of the past. What do you think?
Well, my thought on it is, if you rode the bike, I think it would be. So, you know, not a whole lot of people have gotten an opportunity to ride them, but to me, you know, with the 2 strokes, obviously the sound is awesome. I think the bikes really look beautiful. Same thing with the Ninja H2. It has a character of its own. I mean, the supercharger makes some really unique sounds. The bike's insanely powerful. It's a blast to ride.
It's a lot of fun. Let's take a closer look. Well, taking a closer look at this marvel, and I want everyone out there to understand, I am not ragging on the new Kawasaki H2. I love it. I just think Kawasaki will probably even admit that the bike never lived up to its hype so far. We're just not seeing them as much as we thought we would. Anywho, it's an awesome machine. I want to talk about some of the features. You told me in a text very eloquently, it has a lust for rear tires. We've got 6,000 miles on the motorcycle, and no, this isn't stock tire. This isn't second tire. Joe, this is...
We're going on the 3rd tire.
This is the 3rd tire, 6,000 miles. And I imagine you don't ride it like a nut.
Never done a burnout, just a lot of really hard freeway ramps. So wow. It just tears them apart with acceleration.
I've never ridden one. Maybe someday if I come up here and it's not the dead of winter, I can butter you up if I leave maybe I'll leave you the keys to my truck as a deposit, because they're about the same price.
About the same price, yeah.
Give me a tour of this machine, because this thing is just, I mean, it's slick, it's awesome. I really wish we would see more at the drag strip. I heard that the impeller moves faster than the speed of sound, and that's why when you fire this thing up, it almost gives you like a bunch of little sonic booms. It's crazy.
I think it's 9.3 to 1 crankshaft speed. So if you come over on this side, there's a small planetary gearbox on top of the engine, and that's what is making a lot of the supercharger sound, is the planetary gears. But on the other side of that, you can't really see it from here, but there's basically what looks to be a turbo compressor. So it's crank driven supercharger. 9.3 to 1 crankshaft speed. So if you do the math, if you're turning 10,000 RPMs, it's turning over 90,000 RPMs on the impeller.
Amazing. It's so sleek too. It reminds me of a Formula One type vehicle. It's got the trellis frame. Look at how pretty the polished welds are. And the supercharger too, it's tucked in there so neatly, so efficient. You know, you think about when Kawasaki put the turbo on the bike, back the Z1R turbo, way back in the day, the turbo was hanging off the thing. This is just neatly tucked in there. It's a real marvel. It's a real work of art. It's absolutely beautiful. Again, Joe, I think the only way you could say Kawasaki missed the mark was the price. And how you bring the price of this motorcycle down, I do not know. But let's be honest, we're drag racers. You can go out and get a Hayabusa, you know, for around $12,000. You can get the used market. You can find a Hayabusa for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, and you can. The Busa is going to do just about everything you want it to do.
Yep.
So will the ZX14. So I think it's hard for guys to justify this. Will we see more of them in the future? That's the question I have for you.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, there's a couple of them around here in the Cleveland area, but it's actually kind of nice when I go out riding this bike. You know, you're kind of the only guy around on one. You know, and a lot of people want to stop and see it. But I honestly don't know if you'll see more of them. I think the price is going up over time as well. I mean, this bike, when I bought it new in 2016, was $26,000. The dealer that I bought it from, they ordered their own bike. Typically they're order-only bikes. So a dealer in Medina had ordered one, and I went to look at it. Obviously fell in love with it, and there wasn't a whole lot of dealing to be done. In fact, they wouldn't budge on the price. The sticker price was the price.
Wow, look at this back sprocket. So futuristic. What do you know about this back here?
they just added a nice little trim piece there, but the wheels are what I really enjoy. And you know, a lot of people take these bikes and put the BST wheels on them. I think the factory wheels are really cool with kind of the star pattern, and they put a lot of really nice little trim pieces on the bike.
Yeah, it's all Bremboed out, that's for sure. Beautiful.
The brakes are awesome. The brakes and the suspension on this bike are unlike anything I've ever rode before.
And I really like the cockpit. You can tell that that's made for speed. That reminds me of a Super Surfer on Sega CD or something crazy where you're riding a dang spaceship.
Those are actually adjustable to fit the rider too. So these side pieces, you can adjust them to fit the rider.
All right, Smoking Joe. So let me live vicariously through you. What's it like when you grab a handful of this thing?
It's pretty exciting. A lot of wheeling. It's got traction control on it, which I usually leave on because it would be entirely out of control without it. But on the street, it's really hard to get hooked up, so you're bouncing off of the traction control a lot. You know, it sounds kind of like a rev limiter, but it's really fun. I haven't turned any good ETs on the drag strip with it. It wheelies so much. I've only been able to get into the low 10s with it, but I've crossed the finish line at our local track at 157 on the rear wheel going through the beams. It is built beyond belief. The bike is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I gotta imagine it's difficult to ride.
It's very difficult.
And difficult to race too, I'm for sure.
Yeah, and then I had this bike reflashed when I put the exhaust on it, and I didn't have it reflashed necessarily for horsepower. It was a little bit glitchy, maintenance throttle going in and out of turns, so I had it reflashed, but when I did that, they de-restricted the ECU, which going back, I don't know if I would do that again because Kawasaki limited how far the throttle plates would open depending on what gear you were in, depending on throttle position. Now this bike is wide open, so whatever you tell it to do, it'll do it. And it made it so much harder to ride. You know, probably a really skilled rider could control the throttle a little bit better, but when you get into the boost, it's definitely, it's very responsive, and it takes some time to kind of wrap your head around that.
Totally amazing, guys. 300 horsepower to the crank. And then, of course, this beast that took the world by storm in 1972 had about 75 horsepower to the crank. Now, something I want to talk about, too, that we mention often on this channel. This bike was known as the Widowmaker. It was known for very poor handling. It was known for a lot of gentlemen getting hurt. But Smoking Joe, having a chance to ride one, I want to get your opinion on this, too. I think the myth may be worse than the bike actually was. I think the situation here was, let's be honest, in 1972, a novice rider could go jump on a CB750 and probably be okay. If you didn't know what you were doing on this thing, the way that the power band kicks in after, because it can lull you to sleep. It's like, reminds me of Larry McBride's cat. Comes over, it purrs, oh, it's such a nice kitty, and then it just waits till I'm not paying attention and claws me or bites me. This thing doesn't do much under $3,000. You get it up into the power band, you got to know what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah, and the tires back in the day, tires and brakes were nowhere near what they are these days. I've heard a lot of people talk about violent head shake on these bikes, and I think that was a lot to do with the tire technology, but you know, the metal that they were using on the frames of these things was probably not quite up to the task of today's stuff either.
Yeah, it all depends on how you rode it. I liken it too to when the Hayabusa came out. Hayabusa is a very safe motorcycle. It's not a safe motorcycle for somebody who maybe is coming off a Z50 or has never ridden a motorcycle. I went down to Florida my freshman year of college. I'm seeing guys in tank tops and flip-flops on Busas that were rich kids that have never been on a motorcycle. And I'm thinking, oh God. I learned, this is one of the reasons why I love two-strokes too. I learned in the dirt. Great place to learn. You make your mistakes there, you crash there. That's part of the game. Do it there and not out on the road. And I think maybe a lot of guys with this H2 didn't quite have the experience necessary.
Absolutely.
I could sit in here and look at this two-stroke all day. And by all means, if you're watching this and you have stories and you know anything about the two-strokes, you had one, leave it down below in the comments. And I want to make it clear again, I'm not hating on the new H2. I love it. I had my pom-poms out. I was the biggest cheerleader in 2015. I said, yes, we're going to see him. We just haven't seen him. And I hope Kawasaki can maybe bring the price point down, but I suspect they'll discontinue the bike before it gets better. Let's hope I'm wrong. But Joe, you want to talk about why this bike succeeded? Another reason. I know that money has changed a little bit with inflation. 1972, you could get one for $1,400. And that was a lot of money back then, but I don't think that was $30,000 back then.
I don't think so. No, I think, you know, as it goes, this was a pretty affordable bike back in the day.
It really is gorgeous, guys. Brings back some serious nostalgia. Well, as promised, we told you we would go from somewhat mild to totally wild. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at one of the most trick two-stroke drag bikes in the world. Joe, when I met you, you were the rider of this fine machine over here. I loved it. I'm like, man, Joe has got such a technically advanced motorcycle. Has already become outdated by Smoke and Joe standards because you just took it to the whole new level with this thing. Tell me about it.
This bike is completely hand built. The chassis was built at D&G in Florida.
Very talented gentleman, Dave Skaggs.
It's very light, very strong. It sets lower. The center of gravity is a lot better on it. And it's longer too. The blue bike is a very short wheelbase, and I struggled with that. Once I started making some good power, I always had a hard time getting it to leave the starting line.
D&G chassis, new creation of Smoke and Joe. This thing's awesome. This is Smoke and Joe's brand new bike. This thing is so trick. Smoke and Joe's one of the leaders out here. A lot of carbon fiber, a lot of custom CNC machine parts. On a pass, he's looking for a high 8 out of this new bike. Smoke and Joe, wow, great run. 870 Smoke and Joe, that's one fast two. Now Joe, I know you make a lot of parts yourself. These bells on these electron carburetors.
Yep.
With the Smoke and Joe insignia. Tell me about these little bells here that you made.
Those are 3D printed, and then I wet sanded them and painted a silver base and a red over top to kind of make them look like anodized aluminum. But I don't know, the idea with those was they work kind of like an airplane wing. Air likes to follow rounded surfaces, and just trying to, you know, get the air lined up good going into the carburetors. Every
performance advantage you can get. Now I notice on this motorcycle you do not have the rounded heads that we see on a lot of the H2 drag bikes. Tell me the story there.
These are stock castings. The fins have been milled back. They've been clearanced in the back for the carburetors. But these heads have a lot of welding done in them. So there's a lot of material built up. So then we can remachine that weld and generate the combustion chamber designs that we really want.
Wow. Well, Joe, I can tell you love motorcycles. You're not just a two-stroke loyalist as evidenced by your H2. So the big question is, if you're going to put this much money and time into something, why not a Busa? Why not a ZX14? What is the allure here with the old school two-stroke drag bike?
Well, I've always liked things that are a little bit different. You know, I hate to say it, the Busa is a awesome bike, hands down. I mean, that's why everybody's using them, is because they work so well. But I mean, who hasn't seen one, you know? You bring this to a track anywhere, and it's going to draw some attention, because either people are going to really know what it is, or they're not going to know what it is, and it's just so bizarre to them that they want to learn more, you know?
The sound, the smell, like I said. And I can tell you this, on Cycle Drag YouTube, your videos are absolutely blowing up. Every time I cover a two-stroke race, which I love because I'm a big fan, but always question how it'll be received online, they blow up. Some of our most viewed videos are from Martin, from Valdosta this past year, Super Eliminator. People love these bikes. They're so unique. It's something that I think one of your buddies, who was it, Mr. Chandler?
Steve Chandler.
Mr. Chandler, he had the famous quote that was...
It's in your blood.
Yeah, and it's in your blood and it's in my blood, clearly. It's absolutely gorgeous. And you and I have similar stories, like I said, because we are about the same age, and it literally is in our blood. My dad's first street motorcycle, S2 350, that we still have, that if you've been following along, we're going to try to restore it. We're going to try to get it back out there and race against guys like Smoke and Joe and have some fun. Your dad had one. But I wonder, what's it going to take to keep these things going? Do you think the next generation is going to share the passion that we have for two-strokes?
With these bikes in particular, the problem is parts availability. I mean, you know, everything's been obsolete for so long, so you're using, you know, what used parts you can find online or, you know, through friends. Kind of all the Super Eliminator guys, we all network together to kind of share stuff and keep these things going. But I don't know what the future will be. I do know that this year you're going to see some bikes in Super Eliminator that will be new to competition. So it seems like the level of excitement for the bikes is still there. I want to see it keep growing. I know there's a lot of these bikes out there that should be at the track.
Yes.
They're not doing much good sitting in a garage, you know, and the best way to enjoy something is to use it.
Well, that's a great message to those of you watching out there. If you're watching the video this far in, you probably either have a two-stroke, know somebody with a two-stroke, so please comment down below. We invite you out next year, Martin, Michigan, the Dash for Cash. We invite you out to the Man Cup Finals where we have Super Eliminator. And here's an important caveat, guys. You don't have to have a drag bike. You don't have to have the world's quickest. You can come out with a bone stock 500, 350. It's bracket racing. It's all fun. It's nostalgia. It's about smelling the premix or the mixed oil in that case and hearing the crazy angry bees and getting more of these bikes out there. We know that they're sitting in garages. We just need to get them out there. Especially here in Ohio, I think there's a lot of two-strokes, aren't there?
Kind of the Ohio, actually in Michigan too, there's a lot of them. But yeah, it's kind of like a hotspot for them. I mean, even here in Cleveland, I know of several that, you know, are like ex-IDBA bikes that are just setting.
And for you drag racing history buffs, you know that even at one time, Pro Stock Motorcycle was dominated by H2s. That was the factory bike of choice. Therefore, legends like Paul Gast, Dave Schultz, God rest Dave's soul, but wasn't it cool that Paul Gast, I saw him on the line, all right, walking up to one of the gentlemen, I forget the guy's name that has the H2, he has Paul's old leathers. Paul still loves every minute of it. Paul said these things are cool, he loves them. I think we got to get Paul.
Built a lot of them, and as far as I know, he's still building them, so.
I think we got to get Paul out there on an H2. What do you think?
I think that would get a lot of attention.
I think it would too. It would be a great homage and a great throwback, guys. This is really, really cool. Well, we definitely got to see this bike in action. It is so awesome. Just enough rain to be annoying, huh, Joe?
Yeah, we've been fighting it all weekend.
Hopefully it's just a quick passing sprinkle.
Hope so, yeah.
I want to know in the comments, what's your all-time favorite two-stroke and why? Let me know. If you had one, give me a story. All right, the rain has moved out. Frustrating, we were just ready to go. Let's get back and get some more. Two-strokes can be temperamental. Allison rides through the clutch. Top end, 956, Smoke and Joe. Here comes Steve Chandler again, alongside this wild road tax. $869 to a $947. What an amazing machine. We got to focus in a little bit on these pipes, or expansion chambers as they are known. Very custom, very trick. What's the story here, Smoke and Joe?
These are tune pipes that were built by Doug Flannery in Michigan. He actually ported the cylinders too. The cylinder port timing in these pipes were built for one another. So basically what that involved was a lot of dyno pulls on a single cylinder dyno, making one pipe at a time to come up with the secret recipe. And then once you get the dimensions, Doug actually took that and fitted it to my bike. So this is a one-off build. These are fit to this bike. It was 32 hours worth of work to make the pipes.
32 hours.
Yeah, it's a lot of cutting and welding. You can see all the cutting and welds. Each piece is tapered too, so the pipe gets bigger as it goes out.
Good Lord. I did not want to see that invoice. Hopefully, I'm sure there's a lot of passion here and a lot of hookups, and guys do it for a labor of love. 32 hours, that's crazy.
It's a lot of work.
Oh my goodness. So let me ask you this. We followed Bill Baxter and Jimmy Shongris going for Brian Pretzel's world record of 777. Do you have any desire to go after that mark?
I don't know. Not at this time. I don't think so. I mean, on gasoline, you're not going to do it. It's virtually impossible with an H2. So the only way to get there would be nitrous oxide or, you know, some other method of adding horsepower to it, because these things are really limited in the amount of horsepower they can make, and most of the bikes that are going really fast, you'll notice, are extremely petite and light.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point. Jimmy Shongris is in the 7s with nitrous. Bill Baxter has the world's quickest naturally aspirated in the 7s, but as you pointed out, your motorcycle and his motorcycle quite a bit different, aren't they?
Yeah, his bike is like an engineering marvel. I would say the majority of the motor, you know, is handmade. He's got some very talented friends that have been helping him out, and he's done a great job putting it together. But they're quite different. If you look at the cylinder blocks, you know, this has original Kawasaki castings. Bill's bike, it's all a billet custom made piece, so all the porting and everything is going to be entirely different, and I'm sure it's bigger too. I don't know 100% how many cc's he is, but I'm betting it's more than 750 cc's.
So here's the big question, and this is no disrespect to Bill, because we love Bill, we love Alex Hughes, we love that bike. Is it an H2? Or is it based on an H2?
That might be asking what's a grudge bike. I saw your recent video with that. That could be controversial, because at what point do you call it something else? I mean, he does have a lot of Kawasaki parts. The cases, as far as I know, the transmission and everything are all factory. It's just the top end of the motor is not. And to me, the top end of the motor is the heart of the engine.
Okay.
That's where all the performance is coming from.
Do you happen to know, and this could be you, who has the record with stock cases, gasoline, stock cylinders, stock cylinder heads? Is this the quickest one ever?
I don't know. I think it's got to be pretty close. If it's not the fastest one, it's got to be close. And I know that Paul Gast and Dave Schultz back in the day had ran some 850s.
Isn't that amazing?
It is, yeah.
All those years ago.
A long time ago, and here I am, you know, just trying to catch up, you know.
Well, Joe, you're the master of segues, because you brought me to another topic I wanted to discuss with you, talking about how far ahead Dave Schultz and Paul Gast were in the 70s. Based on what we're seeing with the modern H2, could you imagine if two-strokes were never outlawed on the street? And from what I understand, Kawasaki knew this was coming. They knew emissions were tightening. They knew the time was limited. That's why they wanted to get the H2 out there. They actually held the Z1 back a little bit. It was called the New York Steak Project. It was done when the Honda CB was out, but they waited. They wanted to refine it, and they wanted to focus on the H2 because they knew its days were limited. Where do you think two-stroke technology would be right now if they were still street legal?
Well, you can take a look at the current day snowmobile stuff. I mean, you went to the race in Martin, Michigan there, and you could see some newer two-stroke sleds there. And honestly, with these bikes, there are a lot of people emulating what was done or what is being done with snowmobiles, you know, kind of having a look under the hood and seeing what the latest technology is in port design and things like that. And that's a really good example of where things could be, because the snowmobiles are making just insane amounts of horsepower, and they're tiny little engines. You could almost set the thing in your lap and work on it.
Sure. And I can tell you as a dirt bike guy, seeing what KTM and Husqvarna have done with modern day two-strokes it's pretty amazing. And it makes me wonder. And I don't want to get too political here or give too many beliefs, because I'm certainly for saving the environment. But as a motorcycle guy, I see a tractor trailer billowing out smoke. Then I wonder how bad for the environment is our beloved H2. Can't we have a two-stroke street bike anymore? Especially now with technology. I think they'd be able to make them
ceramics.
And, pretty green, pretty friendly. So hopefully that changes someday. I know that a lot of guys have converted their dirt bikes over, but in terms of the OEMs building street legal two-strokes, like Kawasaki, like Suzuki, just don't know if it's something we'll ever see again.
Probably not, unless they get to figure out some way to make a catalytic converter or something that can really eat up the emissions.
Joe, this was worth the drive. You got a garage full of two-strokes. Just like my father, you have an S2 350. This is like the little brother of the H2. I have ridden one of these at length, and I can tell you they are so snappy, so fast, much like the H2. When you hit that power band, hold on, buddy. What year is this one?
That's a really early 72, and you know, it's stamped 71, and it had the early 4 main bearing crankshaft, which they had some issues with. I've since converted this one over to a 6 main bearing crankshaft because I knew I was going to put a lot of miles on it. But this bike, I bought this and an H2 together several years back, and this bike was in really bad shape. It was wrecked. The front fender was all folded up. The turn signals were just a mess. So I've got parts from all over the world. It's all NOS stuff. You know, the paint's faded and got some chips in it here and there, but it is original, and it's only original once, right?
You've done an outstanding, yes, that is the quote that they throw around at Meekum for sure. You've done an outstanding job bringing it back to life. It's amazing. Taking a look at this rear tire too, this gives you an example of how far we have come. Look at the contact patch.
That's
okay?
A Sears and Roebuck tire on there.
That's a Sears and Roebuck tire. Look at the contact patch compared to the front tire of his ZX12. My goodness, you probably got more contact up here on the front than you did in the rear. Now, granted, it's a much larger bore motorcycle, but still, like I said, these 350s were incredibly fast. I think the triple design, you probably know better than I do the Genesis, or somebody out there watching probably knows the smart, intelligent man that came up with it, but a really efficient, powerful design, huh?
Yeah, you got a power cycle every 120 degrees, so it seems to work pretty good, but they're not what I would call real smooth bikes. You can do some things to help them out a little bit. You can, you know, have the crankshaft balanced to the pistons that you're using, but at the end of the day, they were, like I said, not buttery smooth or anything.
Well, they're a lot of fun, that's for sure. And like I said, if you have one, let us know down below. Well, we're gonna wrap up here in just a little bit, but before we go, a couple cool things to see in his garage. I see we got just more two-stroke eye candy sitting around over here. What's this, Joe?
That's the motor out of the blue bike. It's all freshened up right now. That motor it's a stock bore motor, and the way that it retains the stock bore is it's had some plating done. It's got Nikasil plating on the inside of the cylinders.
Okay, like a modern two-stroke.
Yeah, but that's a little bit of a tricky game, putting Nikasil on iron. It doesn't stick all that well. And 2 years ago at Valdosta, I had a piece of plating come off of the center cylinder, and I just sent it out and got it back from repair, and it's back together with a new piston in it now. But that's gonna go back in the blue bike.
Well, that's another thing I really got to give you guys credit on. And again, this is not to discourage anybody to come out and drag race with us, because you can bring your bone stalker out. But for the people pushing the envelope, like you, Bill Baxter, and everybody, when you hurt one of these things, it's not like you can just go grab the Schnitz Racing or Brock's catalog or Summit catalog and go get yourself some parts. These are one-off rare parts, aren't they? A lot, in many cases.
Yeah, they are. The motors are surprisingly tough, though. The fragile part of the motor is the transmission. If you look at the transmissions in these things, especially guys like Jimmy and Bill Baxter, I don't know how the transmissions are tolerating the amount of horsepower that they make, but they seem to do pretty well with it. Second gear is a problem. Robinson makes a really nice billet second gear set for it, and all the motors here have that in there, because if you start making really good power and you start dipping into the eights, second gear isn't going to last very long.
Really cool, man. This has been so awesome. We're just going to give you a look around at a few more things. If Smokin' Joe says yes, we're going to go upstairs and see some immaculate original bodywork. Can we show that?
Sure.
All right, guys, this was worth the wait. Let's check out what else we got. And Joe, I see not only are you taking care of your own stuff, you also have some customer stuff in here too. What's going on with this?
That's for a friend of mine in Florida. There's some pretty serious street racing that goes on in his area, and he's got a really beautiful 75 H2. And we're going to build him a motor here that is probably going to require a longer swing arm on his bike too, but we're gonna probably build a reed valve motor, because they make real nice usable bottom end power, and they make real nice top end power too. So
very cool. Here you got an old set of cases here.
That was a Christmas gift.
Oh man, who gave you that for Christmas?
That came from Matrix Machines, actually.
He knew exactly what you wanted. I want a set. I want an H2 someday. My God, I wish I had a couple chances earlier in life, and I may have missed it now unless I really get the checkbook out, because at Mecum, I see them restored going for like $25,000. I know everything's a little high at Mecum because there's 10% on each side. Buyer pays 10%, seller pays 10%, but that's what they go for out there.
Yeah,
20, 25,000. Typically, they're about 10 is what you're starting at if you're just looking at a basic classified ad.
There's not many of them left.
Not
many good original examples.
It sparks up nostalgia. Well, Joe, people watching this may want to get some work off you. Do you take jobs if somebody...
It's a really tough thing, because I work a normal job and I put in a lot of hours. Obviously, I have a lot of work to do with my own stuff, but usually for close friends, I'll do some things.
Okay, what's your day job?
I'm an engineer, but I work for a medical device company, and we build equipment that produces radiation that kills cancer.
Awesome. Thank you for what you do. I think we could have all guessed you were some type of engineer too. That's easy to see. That goes tit for tat. And if anybody wants to find you on Facebook, is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure.
Smokin' Joe Molyneux. Molyneux on Facebook. Is that French?
It is.
Molyneux, how about that? Molyneux, guys. Molyneux.
X, as in X-ray.
X. There we go. So finally, we're going to go upstairs and take a look at the body work. Are you an old Honda man as well? I see we got the Honda Monkey in here. That's cool.
My first bike was a QA50. I think I circled the globe about 15 times on it.
That's so cool.
So when I saw the Monkey, it just kind of spoke to my very first experience on a motorcycle,
Amazing, amazing. I love it. My stepdad's got a Honda Z50. We're going to have to restore that one someday soon. Well, let's go upstairs and take a look at this original bodywork, because it's amazing.
Okay.
All right, guys, we are upstairs in the ultimate man cave. Do you think your wife would mind if I move in? Because I kind of like it up here. It's kind of nice.
This part of the house from the garage out this way is mine. So
look, we got old school radio equipment. We could do a podcast up here, vintage style. But what's really vintage is this bodywork. You guys got to see. It's amazing. But before we show you the bodywork, we want to give a big shout out to Matrix Machine, don't we?
Yeah. He's kind of the silent brains behind all the stuff that is keeping these bikes going so fast, and he makes the billet slider clutches, and the level of precision that he puts into his parts is just insane. I mean, everything is triple checked before it goes out the door, and the stuff's really, as it goes, pretty affordable. I don't think he's making a whole lot of money on it. He's just, you know, he's in the clique, you know, he loves the bikes as much as we all do, and he loves to kind of be in the background, shelling all the good stuff out to keep us going fast.
Matrix Machine, you're awesome. Now let's see some body work that's awesome. Oh, Smoking Joe. There it is. Okay, now for those of you watching on YouTube, Facebook, which one's stock? Which one's reproduction? Can you tell from there? I don't know, Smoking Joe. You got to give us a close look and tell us all about each one, because these got some pretty fascinating stories.
The purple bodywork is a repaint that a friend of mine in Southern Ohio painted for me. It's got some spider webs and stuff on it.
Which is totally stunning. And we know from Kawasaki, these were stickers, correct?
They were decals.
And this is now painted. And it looks spot on.
The tank is actually, this does have Kawasaki decals on it.
Okay.
Now, let me set this down and show you the front fender. So this is the front fender for a ZX6R Kawasaki that's going to go to this build.
Okay.
And I told the painter, make the front fender look like it goes with a 73 H2. So he actually, we didn't have another sticker, so he taped and painted those stripes on there. And I mean, it's, you know, it comes to a razor point. He really did a beautiful job on it.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
The color is very true to the factory color too, which is not an easy color to match.
It's spot on. It's really hard to tell the difference between the paint and the decals. Very cool. Fine job he did. Well, now we go to original, right? And you said something moments ago that reminded me of some of the mantras that I hear at Mecum Auction, because there was a question asked. And the great Scooter Kaiser, who used to run ProStar, he's now with a vintage motorcycle organization, was asked a question. You have a tank, it has a dent in it. What do? Try to fix it, try to touch it up, get it repainted, leave it alone. He said without pause,
leave it alone.
There you go, because it's only original once, just like you said.
That's right.
And now we have, but what makes this stuff so rare is what has survived. This has survived. So you got to show us this, Smoking Joe. This is totally original, not repainted. We're going to back up and even be careful here.
The rest of this bike is downstairs. It was an original 72 H2, about, I think, 3,000 original miles on it. The bike sat for 30, 35 years in a pretty damp building. So the core of the bike is in really nice shape. Some of the chrome parts maybe have some rust growing on them, but basically what I'm going to do is take the bike apart, clean everything very thoroughly, and then just put it back together how it is. In fact, it still has the factory tires and everything. I'm going to leave the factory tires on it.
It's beautiful. That's the color H2 I would want someday. And before we go here, you got to show us the side cover, because this is funny, guys. Wait till you see this one. I thought Smoking Joe was playing a trick on me at first, and this was painted. This is stock. This was probably painted somewhere in the year 1971 over in Japan, we think, right?
Yep.
Over in Japan. Look what Smoking Joe found. Okay, there it is. Totally stock. What? Fingerprints. Fingerprints. What do you make of that? Somebody from Kawasaki, maybe?
I can only guess that, you know, usually it was women putting the decals and everything on these. Maybe
small fingers.
Got a little bit of paint on their hands and picked the cover up. So I'm thinking what you're seeing there is the fingerprints from the factory. Whoever worked on this bike.
Could have been a Japanese man, Japanese woman, who knows? Pretty amazing though. What a story. That makes it even more one of a kind. Man, Smoking Joe, that's beautiful. I can't wait to see the entire bike.
I know. I can't wait to ride it, actually. Make money. Because he makes money doing a lot of other machining.
Well, we know, guys, this is a motorcycle channel, but we got to stop for a second because you are a true antique collector. You're telling me this is from 1907 original paint?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
1907 Edison cylinder phonograph.
Look at how beautiful that paint is. How did they do that in 1907? Shoof. And you says it still plays?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You want to hear it?
Heck yeah.
All right. Let's crank it up. I got some 5-finger death punch on there right now. Give her a few cranks here.
What a throwback.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's so cool, Smoking Joe. Is this what you listen to when you're working on motorcycles?
Oh, yeah.
I like it, man.
This is
You
my
are
track.
vintage. You are vintage. That's awesome. Guys, it is an Edison standard phonograph. Smoking Joe says you've heard of people playing wax. This is playing wax. Phonograph. This is how you enjoyed music in 1910.
It's just a cool piece, man. They were making some neat stuff back in the day, and there's no batteries there. Everything's completely mechanical.
Joe, I was wondering if this is copywritten music. Is this going to mess me up on social media?
I don't know. I don't think Google's trying to make any money off of 1900s, early 1900s music.
We'll find out.
Check that out. 35 cents, man.
Guys, this is cool too. We got to show you something. Smoking Joe might be the #1 Steve Johnson fan. Steve Johnson told me one time he thought I was his biggest fan. I think we found an even bigger Steve Johnson fan. Smoking Joe. There he is, the great Steve Johnson. What is that? It's beautiful work of art. How did you make that?
It's actually a colored pencil. I drew it when I was in high school, probably, I'm guessing 1993-ish, maybe? Wow. 1992, maybe?
Colored pencil. Amazing. And what was it that made you such a big Steve Johnson fan?
I don't know. At that time, I was really just getting into motorcycle drag racing, and I really thought the bike was really cool. The paint scheme, the helmet that he had was really unique too. But
yeah, Steve's had some great looking bikes over the years for sure. Certainly has. That was one of my favorites. His bike still looks great today. And you're saying that maybe you could get Steve to sign it, huh?
I was hoping to. I was going to bring it to Valdosta, but I forgot it on the way there. I was pretty upset because I remembered it halfway there. Obviously too far to turn around and come pick it up, but I thought it'd be cool to have it autographed.
All right, Steve, we're calling you down in Alabama. You're the man. We know you're going to watch this. He watches Cycle Drag an awful lot. Steve Johnson, we need your autograph on this fine piece. This thing is awesome, that's for sure.
The ZRX, I hit a deer on that thing, man.
You hit a deer on the ZRX?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, is that why it's no longer here? Was it totaled?
It should have been totaled. I traded it in on the ZX12 that's downstairs.
Okay, that's pretty cool how you have some other photos in here. You have your legendary 2-stroke. Oh my gosh, look at that burnout.
That's an old picture.
Steve Johnson would be proud of that burnout, that's for sure. Truly amazing. Who's this young man down here?
That's me a year or two ago.
Is
probably like grade school time almost, or maybe junior high.
Is that you at the age in which you drew this?
No, like I said, I was probably maybe a sophomore or junior in high school, something like that.
I was gonna say, that's an amazing, definitely amazing photo.
There's the QA50. That was my very first bike. That's me on it. That's a sticker on my helmet from Thompson Drag Raceway back in the day.
Beautiful work of art. Oh, what a landing. Smoking Joe, this video is famous. You're telling me that's your video, your friend.
That's my buddy DJ, yeah.
Oh my, when was that?
Oh, wow. That was at least 15 years ago, I would say.
And he was unharmed in that?
Yeah, he was
that
completely
looked like
fine.
He was headed for a serious injury and then just bounced right back up.
That was a door we found in the woods. We used to go down there, and a lot of my friends used to ride wheelies and do stunts on bikes, and that was our kind of practice grounds. And we found this old door in the woods and some cinder blocks and set it up, and DJ's like, I'll jump that. I think the front tire went through the ramp. If you watch the video, it just busted through and caused them to catapult.
Millions of views online, and you're telling me MTV even wanted that?
Yeah, that was on Rob Dyrdek's Ridiculousness.
That is so cool, man. Thanks for showing us.
Mm-hmm.
I could sit in here and look at this 2-stroke all day. This has been so much fun. I really hope you guys enjoyed this, please share this with a friend. If you have a friend who loves two-strokes, who loves vintage, share it with them. Put this on a drive. Put this on the shop. If you watch till the end, let me know. Do you like these long style garage tours? And I want to thank this guy so much. Smokin' Joe, this has been so much fun, so much to talk about, so much debate. Of course, as the title of this video indicates, did Kawasaki miss it with the 4-stroke H2, or is there more popularity coming? We want you to answer that as well. And a couple housekeeping items we want to take care of too. You and I both have the utmost respect and love Bill Baxter, so we want to make sure Bill knows, no disrespect, we're just having a little bit of fun here, kicking things around, debate. In fact, I was telling the story just about how motorcycle friends are all over the country. I was a freshman at the University of Florida, poor, away from home for the first time, rode my bicycle to the racetrack 15 miles away, and there was a downpour and my heart sank. I said, how am I going to get home? Garrett Wood picked me up, another great two-stroke guy. We've been friends ever since. Garrett and Bill Baxter then became good friends. They drove me to Gainesville Raceway and we crewed for Gino Scali back when Gino was on a Kawasaki. The point of that story is you meet great friends through motorcycling, that's for sure. And proof positive right here. Thank you very much. So
thank you, man.
I appreciate it, Joe. Anything you'd like to add here as we finish this up?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, but I want to thank you. You know, I mean, you've done so much for the sport, and I like your style because, you know, here I am, a guy working out of my 2-car garage, and you cover everybody, man. You cover the top and the bottom, and that's really cool, man. You're well balanced, and everybody, you should be wearing one of these shirts.
Thank you.
Anybody that's into motorcycle drag racing, I mean, you know, I see your stickers on everybody's bike. Come on, man, show some support.
I appreciate it. We will have these. A lot of people want to know where to get these too. More information coming on that really, really soon. But I appreciate it. The pleasure is all mine. I've been around factories. I've been around $1 million teams. I love that side of the sport as well when it comes to any form of motorsport. But the real joy I get is right here in a garage. You know, maybe having an adult beverage or two, sitting around talking motorcycles with the real unsung heroes of drag bike racing like yourself. So this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it, and I think we need to do it again. And I think, to wrap this up, we need to get more two-stroke racers to the track. Calling them out, huh?
Absolutely. Get them out of the garage. I know there's a lot of them sitting around with dust. Dig them out. There's still parts. There's companies making new crankshafts. There's more stuff on the chopping board right now. So I don't want to hear that I'm afraid to hurt a part anymore. Get it out. You only live once. Get that thing out of the garage. Have some fun.
And we will help you guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you to Smokin' Joe. If you love two-strokes, this is your channel. Make sure you check out our extensive coverage of two-stroke racing. You can find it. It's some of the most viewed videos on this channel. If you like this video, here's another one for you. You know, if there's anything fast motorcycles, we are in. Smell the premix. Hear the angry bees. Two strokes roll, and cycle drag rolls on.